Okay, as Scott mentioned, I'll be talking about Knime servers. Let's jump in. All right, you've seen this slide before earlier. Knime LX platform is all about creating data science, and Knime server is about productionizing. So I'm going to talk about Knime server for the next few minutes. A major feature of Knime server is being able to automate workflow execution. There's several ways of doing that. You can schedule a workflow. The means of building that schedule is very flexible, so it's pretty powerful in how the different schedules that you can create. You can trigger workflows from other workflows. You can actually call a workflow on the Knime server using a REST API. You can also use call actions on the status of a scheduled workflow. So for example, if a scheduled workflow fails, you can actually invoke another workflow to handle that failure for you. A really powerful feature also is the ability to view, edit, and execute workflows remotely on the server. So you can be at your analytics platform connected into the server, and you can actually open up a workflow on the server and work with it interactively. And this is really powerful if you have some resources on the server that are only available there, let's say like a connection to a database. So you can bring up that workflow, you can edit it, you can debug it as much as you need to. And yeah, so it's just like you're sitting in your analytics platform and editing it locally. All right, single sign-on. This is not new. So we've had LDAP and AD integration for a couple of years, but we recently added OAuth integration. And there, it's just a way of being able to get onto the Knime server using your normal login. So once you've connected, like with OAuth, when you go to Knime server, it will redirect you to your identity provider. You input all your credential information, and you're automatically logged in. And then you don't have to log in every time. As long as that token lives for a while, you're able to log back in again very easily. So again, just kind of making life easier for those who use Knime server. All right, this is a busy slide. There's a lot going on here, so let me kind of break it down a little bit. Some of the main concepts we want to get across here is using Knime server large, you can actually have off-boarded Knime executors. So what are executors? They're the piece of software within Knime that runs a workflow for the server. So the server really concentrates on interacting with users, building schedules, REST APIs all come through the server, but the workflow is actually executed through the executor. So one new concept that we've added in the last release is called executor groups. So in this slide, I have 4 executor groups, a red one, yellow, blue, and green. And so executor groups are just a way of kind of logically grouping executors together for like management domain and sort of monitoring domain and some other things that you can do with it. So for example, on the blue executor group, I have the engineering group that's using it. And so this is a capability that you can do within Knime servers to say that, executor group blue is only used by the engineering group. So if I log into the Knime server and I'm in that engineering group, when I run a job, it's always going to run within that blue group. This is a nice way of segregating out your compute capacity for the Knime server, so you can share it between departments or however you want to split that up. So one thing we're showing too in that blue group is that we have one executor running on Azure and another executor running on AWS. All right, this is a little bit of an extreme example, right? But we want to show you that we do support hybrid deployments. And this is not only with the executors, this is also with the Knime server. So if you want to run your server on-prem and have your executors running in cloud, or mix and match that up however you want to, we've really architected the Knime server with the executors that you can deploy them. You get just tons of deployment flexibility on how wherever you want them to be placed. As long as you have network connectivity from the server, you're able to the executor, you can put them wherever you want to. And also we're showing that we have pay-as-you-go executors on AWS. This is for auto scaling. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. So what auto scaling entails is the ability to, like with a Knime server, if we're just getting tons of jobs in, all the executors are busy. With auto scaling, we could actually then start up new executors. They join the server, they start accepting jobs, the load goes down, hopefully, over time, and then you can actually throw the ones you don't need away so that you can have some cost savings. This works with pay-as-you-go executors on the cloud. Pay-as-you-go means you're actually paying the cloud provider on an hourly basis for using that executor. You can bring up as many as you want. You can throw them away when you're done. This also works on Azure. So just want to show you some of the flexibility of the deployment flexibility that you have with Knime server and executors. All right, we worked on a new web portal for the last release. This is really based on trying to do better UX design for business users. The previous web portal was a little bit more focused on developers and was a little confusing for business users to use. So you can go actually directly to a page for a particular web portal application. You can also get a link to that, and you can share that with other people so they can go directly to this page also. We also had just a little bit more interactivity that makes more sense for the business user about what's going on, how's my workflow doing, what stage am I at right now? And also, you still get the same great interactivity within all the pages that you build for your web application. They just run faster and they look a little nicer. All right, speaking of creating links for a web portal application and share them, one thing that we heard users say is that, okay, I shared this with a business user, they click on the link, but then they have to log in and it gets a little confusing. So we created the capability to embed a web portal application in other applications. In other words, you can create a pre-signed URL for a web portal application. You can share that with people through email or online documents. You can embed it in a web app, like within an iframe. And the great thing about that is when someone uses it, when someone consumes it, they click on that URL, they go directly to that page and they're able to interact with the web application without having to sign in. Now, you do get to manage the access to that URL. So eventually you can turn it off, you can change the access for it. Yeah, so lots of capabilities there. This is a new feature, and so it will be available in the December release of Knime Server. All right, one thing that we heard a lot about from customers with Knime Server is it was really a pain to have to log into the server itself, the server instance itself, to be able to change configuration values for the server. And so we added a web portal or admin portal page for that, where you can actually change all the configuration values for the server within that page. So if you're an admin for the Knime server, you log in through your browser onto the web portal, onto the admin portal, sorry. You can go into this configuration page and change a configuration. Once you've changed it, you can then save it, and then it's automatically saved on the Knime server. This is great. We heard a lot of like data science leaders they're having to admin their own Knime server. They don't have access to the actual machine. IT controls that. So this allows you to do this remotely. Another thing we heard a lot about was like, where's my job? Where's it at? What's happening? I need some more information about what's happening on Knime server. So again, this is a new feature that'll be available in the December release. You can monitor we have three new monitoring pages. One is for jobs, which is what I'm showing here, schedules and executors. So for jobs, you can see all the current jobs that are running or jobs that have run recently. You can actually, within the select columns, there's great filtering capabilities there. It's very intelligent, very easy to use. You can hover over messages that a workflow may have output if it fails. So you can see those messages directly on the GUI very easily. And this is my favorite feature. You can actually group the jobs together using this group by function. So for example, I have this particular screen grouped by created by. It shows me it was either created by a schedule, by the old web portal, by the Explorer. So if someone says, hey, my scheduled job, I'm not sure if it ran, I can just go to this very quickly, group by schedule, view it and see, has that job actually run? Did it fail? Let me figure out what's going on. So really just trying to make your life as easy as possible and working with Knime server and having to administrate it. All right, for schedules, this is really great because when you create a schedule on the analytics platform, that was really the only place that you could see it very easily. And so now with schedules, you can actually see all the jobs that are scheduled. You can actually also go into this page and disable or enable schedules directly very easily. If you expand the schedule, you can actually see all the recent jobs that have run. So again, just a quick way to see, are my jobs working? What's been going on lately? You can also view jobs that are created by the schedule here, right? And you can also delete a schedule if you want to, or copy a link to a schedule so you can share it with someone else. All right, and third part is executors. So on the executor page, this is all grouped by what we called earlier executor groups. So I have my multiple executor groups. I can see them, get some information about them. If I expand them, I can actually see the executors within that group. And on that executor page, I can also get some system information about that executor. For example, the memory usage and the CPU load. I also can see the core tokens that this particular executor takes. So this helps me figure out, where's my license being used. And another important feature that I really love is it shows you the version of the analytics platform that's being used by the executor. So again, it helps you keep track of what's there, what's been installed. Is this going to be compatible with workflows that are being run on this executor, for example? And of course, you can also see the jobs that are currently active on that executor. All right, we talked a little bit about elastic scalability on cloud. Just to tell you about our cloud offerings within AWS and Azure, we have multiple offerings within their marketplace. Marketplace is great. It's a really fast way if you want to get started with Knime Server. Literally with a few clicks, you can have server up and running, configured, and ready to go. So on that marketplace on both AWS and Azure, we have the Knime Analytics platform. We have all the versions of the server available for you to use, and we have Knime Executors. Again, with Knime Executors, you have to be using Knime Server Large, but if you have Knime Server Large running in cloud or even on-prem, you can bring up Knime Executors. They come in 2 editions. They come in pay-as-you-go, again, elastic scaling. They also come in BYOL or bring your own license. So the BYOL instances, Executors, when they connect to the server, they'll get that licensing from the server itself. And so they will use cores from that license. You can bring those up in an auto-scaling group. You can't scale, but it's really nice to do that because if one of them dies, the auto-scaling group will automatically bring one back up for you, so you don't lose any of your capacity. All right, so one thing that we've heard a lot about from customers is inference on demand. When we talk about inferencing, what we mean by that is the application of a model. So we talked earlier about creating models, and then we want to be able to apply them as we deploy them. Within Knime, that looks like building a workflow that takes in some data, applies the model. There's usually some sort of predictor node in every model. Call that predictor node, whatever it may be, and then return an answer. This can be deployed in Knime as a service, as an API endpoint. This works in server today, so great, works great, but we heard some additional requirements from users that they wanted around being able to do inferencing. The first one was just deployed to many concurrent end users, thousands to tens of thousands. With spikes in demand, of course, if you have that many users, you're gonna have spikes in demands at times. So that means elastic scaling. Also wanted low and consistent latency. So latency is about when I make a call into the server, how long does it take it to come back? And if you're having to deal with consumers, or maybe you have very tight timelines on these calls that you're making for inferencing, you want that to be low and to be consistent. And also the ability to update models. So over time, your models change. They have to be refreshed. You want to be able to kind of put those into production in a way that you can roll it out. And one thing that we heard also was the ability to replicate deployments across geographic regions. So this may be more of a manufacturing use case where you have multiple factories out in the world, and you want to be able to do inferencing on the manufacturing floor, applying predictive analytics. Maybe you're doing some sort of image analysis, whatever that may be, right? But you want to be able to kind of spread that out. This also could be a use case for any sort of like consumer-facing thing where you want to be able to have multiple, inferencing abilities in different regions within the cloud, right? Different geographic regions. Again, trying to put that as close on the edge to the consumer as possible. And you really want this controlled from a central location. You have multiple instances running out in the world. You want to be able to, from Knime server, to be able to have some sort of CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment type of capability with those instances. And so that's where we're talking about Knime Edge, which is a new extension that we're adding on to Knime server. So Knime server would be the hub for all of these edge instances. This is a factory deployment or a kind of architecture that I'm showing here, but it would be the same thing if you want to run it into multiple regions on cloud. So the Knime server acts as a hub, and we have these workflows already being deployed in those edge instances using Docker containers, using what we call an inference agent. That inference agent is specialized in taking requests from an API, invoking the workflow, getting the results back and passing that back. That's all they do. They're very specialized. They're very fast. We deploy this into a Kubernetes framework. And why do we use Kubernetes? Well, it supports scaling. It supports reliability and high availability. It also supports load balancing. So we could deploy multiple of these inference agents for a particular workflow and have that behind one IP address. And also supports monitoring and management. So really makes it easy for you to keep up with what's going on, figure out if there's problems, figure out where the bottlenecks, and then how do you fix those. This is currently being worked on. It's getting ready to go into a limited preview with multiple customers, and will be more general availability in early 2021. So just want to introduce that to everybody and let you know what we're working on.
I don't know for sure.
And that's it for me today, Scott.
Cool. Yeah, thank you, Jim.